Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are cutting straight to the core today, looking at one of the most profoundly disturbing figures in American crime, John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, and the thing about Gacy isn't just the staggering number 33 young men and boys killed in the Chicago area between 72 and 78.
No, it's the mask, isn't it? That's the terrifying part.
Absolutely. What our sources really hit home on is that complete split. This wasn't some recluse. This was Gacy, the successful contractor,
The guy decorated by the Jaycees, involved in local politics.
shaking hands with First Lady Rosalind Carter just months before his arrest in May 1978, actually.
And then there's Pogo the Clown, the children's entertainer.
Yeah.
It's an almost unbelievable cover.
It really is. So our mission here is to dig into the sources about Gacy's life from, well, his really rough start to how that crawl space discovery happened.
Right, and try to figure out how he managed to build that wall, that facade of respectability, and maybe where the system failed to see the danger even after he was flagged.
And to understand why he needed that mask, you really have to go back to his childhood. The sources paint a grim picture. Born 1942.
Yeah.
His dad, an alcoholic mechanic, was just relentlessly cruel, physical abuse, constant verbal stuff, calling him dumb, a sissy.
Started incredibly young, too, right?
Yeah.
Beaten at age 4 just for touching engine parts.
Yeah. And the psychological side. I mean, later he was molested by a family friend, but he was too scared to tell his father.
Terrified he'd be blamed or mocked.
Exactly. Yet, despite all that rejection, there's this intense need for approval. The sources say Gacy considered the time after he got married in '64 and had kids as perfect.
Because he felt he finally had his dad's approval, always performing, seeking validation.
Precisely. And that performance, well, it led to external success, at least for a while. Late 60s, he's managing KFCs in Iowa, big in the Jaycees.
But that veneer was paper thin.
Yeah.
And it cracked big time in 1968.
Okay, yeah, let's focus on that Iowa conviction. This is where the alarm bells should have been deafening.
He assaulted a 15-year-old boy, Donald Voorhees Jr., lured him with alcohol, stag films.
But his reaction, pure deflection, no remorse. He claimed he was the victim, said it was a hostile environment, even implied it was politically motivated because the boy's father was running against him for a Jaycees position.
Just zero accountability, blame everyone else. Classic sociopathic trait.
And then the psychiatric evaluation they did back then, it's chilling how accurate it was.
Right. Diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, basically, sociopathy or psychopathy. And the doctor said he was unlikely to benefit from treatment.
They literally identified him. But the consequence, almost nothing.
Which is the huge systemic failure, isn't it?
Absolutely. He got 10 years for sodomy, but he played the model prisoner head cook, rose up in the inmate Jaycee group.
Charmed his way out.
Served just 18 months. It basically taught him that his mask worked, even inside prison. He gets out in 1970, and just 2 years later, the murders start.
He learned that respectability could be like immunity. So he comes back to Chicago, buys that house on Somerdale Avenue, which becomes,
The burial site.
Yeah.
And starts PDM contractors.
How key was the contracting business to his methods?
Oh, it was crucial. Gave him income, sure, but also cover for weird hours, people coming and going.
And a pool of potential victims.
Exactly. Young men, often vulnerable, looking for work. He could lure them with job offers, cash, or sometimes just coerce them.
And all the while, he's doubling down on that community shield.
Totally. The perfect neighbor plowing snow, lending tools, throwing these huge block parties. 400 people sometimes.
Involved in politics, precinct captain, organized the Polish Constitution Day parade. He built this social fortress.
And the final, really creepy touch, Pogo and Patches the Clown joins the Jolly Joker Clown Club around late '75.
Performing at kids' hospitals, charity events, he claimed it let him regress into childhood.
Which sounds therapeutic, but psychologically, it was the ultimate disguise. I mean, who suspects the friendly clown?
Okay, let's shift to the modus operandi, the actual mechanics of the killings. He targeted young men, teenagers.
Often using those job offers, but sometimes force, or even pretending to be police using a badge, red lights on his car.
The level of planning was high. That magic trick detail is just horrifying.
Yeah, it relied on getting their trust first. He'd say, let me show you a trick, get them to agree to be handcuffed behind their back.
Yeah, and he had a hidden key.
Right. Frees himself, leaves them totally helpless.
The torture described is almost too much. Forced acts, burns, sodomy.
And the final act, what he called the rope trick, it was clinical.
Methodical strangulation with a rope tourniquet tightened with a hammer handle.
Yeah, and he'd taunt them, this is the last trick. And Gacy himself, when he talked about killing Timothy McCoy back in '72, the first one.
Which he tried to spin as self-defense initially.
Right. But later admitted, as he stabbed McCoy and heard the sounds, he felt a mind-numbing orgasm. He realized, his words, death was the ultimate thrill.
Wow. So it wasn't just about sex. It was power, control, death itself.
Exactly. Which then created a logistical problem, what to do with 33 bodies.
By '78, that ranch house was literally full.
He was careful about hiding them at first. 26 ended up in that crawl space under the house. It was only about 4 feet high.
He used quicklime.
Yeah, people think it dissolves bodies, but it mostly just speeds up decomposition and masks the smell. And the early chilling part...
He made his employees dig the trenches.
Yes. KDM employees, like Gregory Godzik, told them they were digging for drainage pipes or foundation work. Trenches about 2 by 6 by 2 feet deep. He essentially made them dig the graves.
That detail about the employees, it feels important, maybe for later, but by mid-'78, even the crawl space was full. He couldn't use the attic, worried about leakage.
Right. So he switched tactics, started dumping bodies off the I-55 bridge into the Des Plaines River. 4 confirmed victims went that way. He claimed 5, said 1 landed on a barge, but 4 were recovered from the river.
And the whole thing finally started to unravel with Robert Piest.
December 11th, 1978. 15-year-old kid lured from his pharmacy job with a promise of better pay.
Thankfully, his parents didn't wait. They reported him missing immediately.
And the police quickly zeroed in on Gacy as the last person seen with Robert.
That first search warrant was the beginning of the end, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. They found handcuffs, police badges, books on pederasty, and crucially, Piest's blue parka and the receipt from the pharmacy where he worked. Direct link.
So surveillance starts, and Gacy's behavior was just bizarre.
Totally unnerving, taunting the cops, watching his house, inviting them over for food, performing right to the end.
But the evidence kept piling up. The detection dog hitting on the trunk of his car.
The death reaction, they called it. And then that infamous line he supposedly dropped over breakfast with the officers.
You know, clowns can get away with murder.
Practically daring them. He must have known it was closing in.
And the physical evidence inside the house became undeniable. An officer noticed that smell.
Yeah, that awful rancid smell coming from a heating duct. The bodies in the crawl space had been somewhat preserved by the cold Illinois winter, but once the heat was on...
The smell became overwhelming.
Gacy knew it was over, drove to his lawyer's office, confessed Piest was in a river, admitted to killing at least 30 people.
Still trying to spin it, though, claiming he'd black out and wake up to find strangled kids.
Right, trying to set up that dissociation defense. But when the police got the final warrant to really tear the place apart, Gacy tried one last thing.
He unplugged the sump pump.
Yeah, deliberately flooded the crawl space to try and destroy or hinder the evidence collection.
Too late, Pio.
Way too late. An evidence tech crawled into that flooded, freezing muck, started digging, and pretty quickly yelled out that horrifying line.
I think this place is full of kids.
Yeah, they pulled 26 bodies out of that crawl space over the next week or so.
The trial in 1980, charged with 33 murders. The defense went for insanity.
Uh-huh. Not guilty by reason of insanity. Argued he had multiple personalities. Bad Jack, the cop, the clown, the contractor, basically using the very mask he created as a defense.
But the prosecution just tore that apart.
They really did. Painted him as calculated, sane, fully aware, pointed to all the premeditation, the handcuff trick, the quicklime, getting employees to dig those graves.
And the testimony from survivors must have been brutal. Robert Donnelly, Jeffrey Rignall.
Yeah, Rignall actually got physically ill on the stand, had to be excused while describing the torture Gacy subjected him to. It was incredibly powerful testimony.
The jury didn't buy the insanity plea at all.
Not for a second. They deliberated for less than 1 hour, 50 minutes actually, and found him guilty. All 33 counts.
14 years on death row. And the execution itself in '94 wasn't exactly smooth either, was it?
No, there was a problem with the lethal injection chemicals. They apparently solidified or clogged the IV tube. Took a while to sort out.
Leading to that comment from one of the prosecutors.
Yeah. Gacy got a much easier death than any of his victims, which is hard to argue with. His reported last words, by the way, "Kiss my ass."
Classy to the end. So, beyond the horror, what's the lasting impact? Did anything good come from this nightmare?
Well, sometimes procedural changes are the only positive legacy of these kinds of failures, and Gacy's case did force change.
The waiting period for missing kids.
Exactly. Back then, Illinois law often meant police waited 72 hours before launching a full investigation for a missing child. Peast's case, and the delays even after Gacy was identified as a suspect, directly pushed Illinois to pass the Missing Child Recovery Act in 1984.
Get rid of that waiting period.
Yep. And that Illinois law became one of the building blocks later on for the nationwide Amber Alert system. So a policy legacy born from tragedy and, frankly, some initial negligence.
And the case itself still isn't completely closed, is it? There are still unidentified victims.
That's right. 5 of the 33 remain unidentified. But since 2011, the Cook County Sheriff's Office has been doing incredible work with modern DNA and forensic genealogy.
They've managed to identify a few recently.
Yes, they successfully identified Francis Wayne Alexander, William Bundy, and James Hawkinson, giving closure to families after decades. It shows how science keeps moving forward.
Which brings us to maybe the most unsettling loose end our sources touch on. The accomplice question.
Yeah, this is tricky. Gacy himself, ever the manipulator, insisted he didn't act alone, told investigators his associates were involved directly.
Claimed 3 PDM employees had keys, did most of the murders while he was traveling.
Now, you have to take anything Gacy says with a huge grain of salt. Obviously, he lied constantly.
There are some odd pieces of circumstantial evidence, aren't there?
There are. Jeffrey Rignall, the survivor, recalled seeing another young man watching while Gacy tortured him.
And the travel record showing Gacy was definitely out of state when at least 3 of the victims were likely killed and buried.
Right. That's hard to explain away easily. And then there's that detail about his employees digging trenches, plus that really disturbing overheard conversation.
Where an employee supposedly asked Gacy, and what? Buried like the other 5.
Exactly. Now, does that prove they participated in the murders? No. But it suggests, at the very least, a disturbing level of awareness, maybe even forced complicity in the disposal of bodies. It just shows how deep Gacy's manipulation might have gone.
So wrapping this up,
Hmm.
what are the big takeaways for listeners? We see the terrifying effectiveness of that mask, the clown, the politician, the good neighbor, hiding unimaginable evil.
For 33 victims, yeah. But maybe the real indictment, the systemic issue, goes back to 1968.
That first conviction,
The-
diagnosis.
Exactly. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Doctor said treatment likely wouldn't work, and he served 18 months. He was identified as dangerous, and the system let him walk right back out.
So the final thought we leave you with is unsettling. How much of this horror, how many of those 33 lives might have been saved if the authorities, the justice system, had taken that 1968 diagnosis and his history seriously then, instead of letting him charm his way out after only 18 months? That's the really uncomfortable question this deep dive forces us to confront.